What's good, y'all? And aloha from Oahu. This is day 12 of 30 days sober in the streets of Oahu. But before getting into childhood trauma part 2, I wanted to get through my day. Thanks to the homie who is thugging it out here too. He has some connections, and one of the connections that he was able to help me with was a moving company that will be keeping me busy till the 5th of August. So it's nice. It's a nice little side hustle to keep me busy and also to have some money to help me out throughout the week. I'm also realizing that in the beginning of this sobriety journey, I wanted to quit everything cold turkey, but being that I'm aware of this system and all the things that we as humans have to overcome, I'm realizing how difficult it is for me to quit everything that negatively affects me cold turkey. For real. But, on that note, the biggest lesson I learned while being homeless in the streets of Oahu is that we as humans only need 5 things that I've come up with. So, yeah, this is my opinion. So take it how you want, but I'm gonna just get right into it. Number 1 is air, because without air for 3 to 5 minutes, we lose consciousness. And if you aren't resuscitated, you'll die, right? Which I gotta add, changes the way I understand the meaning of aloha, which means breath of life. And I wanted to go a little deeper on that because the Olelo term for white person is haoli, meaning ha, breath, and oli, without. Now, this is my interpretation of the meaning, so take it how you want, but I truly believe without breath, we lose consciousness or awareness. And so haoli can also mean, for me, a person with no awareness. And isn't that how white colonizers moved throughout history? Right? They have no awareness of their environment, the people, and the animals around them. And they just take, conquer, and destroy everything they touch, which makes me think, are we breathing in air or consciousness? Right? So let me know what y'all think about that. And then continuing on, number 2 is sleep, man. Let me tell you how important sleep is, because a lot of the people around me are sleep deprived, because that's what crazy drugs like ice and even coke and other crazy drugs do, right? It's kind of sad to see how many of my younger Kanaka who struggle with ice look older than me, but I've never heard anyone go 7 days without sleep. So personally, I've gone 7 days without food or water, so that's why sleep for me, I believe, is number 2. Number 3 is food and water, obviously. Yeah, I've watched actually a YouTuber who was going through like a weight loss challenge, go 100 days without food, just water. So don't let me get into what a breatharian is. All right, y'all look up what a breatharian is, because that's kind of crazy to see that someone can just live off of breath, right? But yeah, anyway, but food and water is definitely a need. And number 4 is obviously procreation. So in order to continue the human race, we got to procreate. So relationships and community is a need, right? Connections with others is a must. Jesus was an amazing person, but if he didn't help others, he wouldn't have been someone worth following, because that's part of what makes us human, right? And actually, I want to go a little deeper on that, because where the Christians lose me at is we're told that Jesus is perfect, right? Even though we don't have a perfect record of his life, he has some missing years in there, right? And so, yeah, but even Jesus said that you can do all things that I can, even more, so we can be even perfecter than Jesus, yet we're told that he's the only perfect being. I don't know, make it make sense, Christians. I'm just throwing out some thoughts, right? And then number 5 is protection of all things. Yes, protection of the previous 4, but this is where I believe we have made like the mistake of having number 5 be the number 1, if not 2, because sleeping in a mansion and a tent serve the same purpose, but one doesn't have to worry about a mortgage. And a car and a bus help get you from point A to point B, but at least one doesn't have to worry about a car note or gas. So, yeah, I'm starting to see how the quality of things has become more of a priority than the quality of life. So just things to contemplate on. I'm not saying that those are the 5 needs. I'm just saying that's my interpretation of what the basic human needs are. And shoot, even vices serve as a form of protection, but I would say more of a void, right? Because alcohol, weed, nicotine, porn, meat, sugar, and even being distracted with entertainment and social media has become ways we all cope with the stresses of life, right? I've only been able to kick alcohol, weed, and meat successfully throughout the start of this journey. But cigarettes, no fapping, and being overstimulated with distractions has been the hardest to kick, because these are all things that grant like instant gratification for me, and sort of like my biggest struggles throughout my life. So with that being said, I wanted to go into my childhood traumas part 2, because I am the product of an abusive relationship, you know. I don't know how mom and dad could have 9 of us and not want to work it out, right? So these are just my experiences, and so I wanted to talk about some events that involve abuse and how they've affected my adulthood, specifically one event in particular. Because fortunately for us younger 4 kids, we didn't see how abusive our dad was with mom, but because mom, I feel like she didn't fully heal from that relationship. We seen her attract the same type of men that had the same abusive behaviors as dad. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't remember exactly how old I was, but it was one of the earliest memories of abuse that I remember, where mom came home with like a golf ball lump on her eye, which she said came from falling downstairs. And I remember brothers Aries and Virgo went looking for mom's boyfriend at the time, because they automatically knew mom was covering up for him. And this boyfriend of mom's was the most abusive to mom and was the hardest person for her to leave. And he was a black man named Keith. And I just remember mom had a hard time leaving him throughout our childhood. So this particular memory, I remember we were all worried about Aries and Virgo, because this is when they were teens and into gang banging. So they went looking for Keith with guns that they had at the time. And I remember we were all like just worried about them the whole day. But thankfully, when they couldn't find him, I just remember distinctively when Aries came home, he threw us younger boys in a room, and he was like, you know, just furious. And he was like, you know, he said one of the most profound lessons on abuse. And this is how I know he's seen mom at his worst, because he was like, he is very intentional about this. He told us, hey, never put your hands on a woman, because the first time you ever put your hands on a woman is the last time they'll be themselves around you. You know how deep those words sunk in? It's such a profound memory that speaks volumes to this day. And I believe that's kind of why I was very anxious with relationships growing up, because it's so true. Like, how can a woman ever feel safe when she knows you can cross that boundary, right? And the same goes with kids and their caregivers. This is where I started realizing how even abuse and violence traumatizes a child in more ways than just physical. Especially post-traumatic abuse, because one of the ways my mom and the older siblings would apologize without saying sorry was with food. Yeah, so I'm realizing how food affected the way we cope with physical stress. And a lot of my stress is from family and day-to-day experiences that trigger my stress levels is what puts me into this cycle of depressive eating. And now as an adult, I'm seeing how my coping mechanisms also play factors in that, with like nicotine and sexual tension. Yeah, so these are just things I'm realizing is the biggest struggle with coping. And also just how much food is a key factor with how I cope. And I realized during this process that how unhealthy it is to quit everything cold turkey without having a better alternative to rely on when I'm triggered or have downfalls, you know, especially junk food, because I truly believe throughout the process of my sobriety, I'm seeing how sugar is the biggest crutch of my coping mechanisms, right? And I think that stems from all the abuse I experienced in my childhood, and how my mom and older siblings would just treat me to a meal or snack to help me get over the traumas of abuse. Yeah, so I realized that food plays a big role in how we cope with anxiety and depression. And that's why one of the unfortunate facts of my Samoan people is that 1 in 4 Samoans are overweight or obese. And that's because of how much we rely on food to help us cope. In fact, food is actually one of the things that we're known for. For instance, that's why a tub of ice cream tastes better after a breakup. I know, ladies, y'all know what I'm talking about with that one, all right? But that's what I'm realizing is the biggest downfall when I'm triggered. So that's been difficult for me to navigate in an environment like this. But yeah, I'm gonna end it there for part 2 of childhood traumas. And when I get into part 3, it'll require you to watch part 1. And so give me some time to really break down part 3, because this one is one of the hardest for me to share, because it's what led me to my spiritual journey and even leaving Christianity, specifically being Mormon. So yeah, if you haven't watched part 1, I suggest watching that video before I get into part 3 of childhood traumas. And if you resonate with this message, feel free to leave a comment. And if you don't feel like this is a safe space for you to leave a comment, do me a favor, like this. At the bare minimum, subscribe to help get this platform to where I'm hoping it will go. So yeah, I appreciate y'all for watching if you got to this point in the video. And as always, do your best to spread love. And yeah, mahalo from Hawaii. Yes, sir.